You know what the duplicate numbers are?
I'm sorry?
You know what the duplicate user numbers are?
Not yet. I'll let you know in a second.
I'm gonna make, so we got up to 5, can I make 3 more, like 6, 7, and 8?
We actually have
Sixes.
6, so maybe.
Oh.
Okay, so as she's doing that, I'm going to continue through the process, okay? Because I know we have limited time and I do want to be able to show you all of this. And then we'll get you the logins and then you can get in as well, okay? So we'll kind of do all this in parallel. So here's the first form in the thing. Can you call me to the joint so I can hang up my phone? All right. So we fill out this information. And as you click save, all right, it will then prompt you to go to IDUHA IDU's history form, all right? So it's taking you through the intake process. Here you're collecting IDU information, and it's pre-populating some of the information through. So it's populating the date, it's pulling through contract, etc. So you're not going to do as much double data entry, so that is pre-populating for you. All right. And you know, when you guys are able to log in and really play around, you'll have time to like look over all this in detail. We do want to make sure we get through it all. We'll just continue going. You should be able to hang that up now if you're in. Okay. So the next one in this history is IDUHA miscellaneous history. Also, if you notice up here at the top, as you're navigating through different parts of the system and this intake process, it is having your breadcrumbs for you. So it's showing you where you are and where you've been. We could click backwards on these and go back in the process, okay? I'm going to do that right now, so we're going to keep moving forward, but I could go back and I could click back to the client profile, the form I was just on, etc. All right. Next one is go to IDUHA housing history. All right, so this is where you're going to record that housing information. All right, and now we have the next one in our process is IDUHA HIV status history. All right, and then we have a form for substance use history. And as you can see, there are ones like multi-select. When you select methadone, it'll prompt more information. So these forms are really great and they're pretty comprehensive. And they do have those kind of dependencies and stuff that can be built. All right. We have another form for sexual risk history. All right. So those are, I do have specific parts that have been built into the intake process.
Just a quick note, because the receipts through 11 are done, so if people want to sign in if you're having any using nyse@test.com, and the password is the same thing. There are 4 more people who want to sign in, but you'll have to tell us which one you're taking. Taking 8 here. Anybody want 9? 9, Lance. Okay, 10. Everybody good?
I'll take 10.
10. Okay, 10 goes to Ben. There's 1 more 11 if you want to sign in. All right. Okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you have the ability to, so that part we went through was the IDUHA specific intake forms that they worked on and built for you. So you can back out of that intake process. You can go to the client chart. You can go kind of back and forth as well. So even though we like followed all of our go-to buttons through it, and it's meant to guide you to really capture that data that needs to be captured, you can come in and out of it, okay? So even though we're clicking form, there are ways to navigate through it, so you don't just have to form all the time, okay? So the system has the ability to capture different name histories, so if someone's name changes or if they had, they went by a previous name in the past, and et cetera, that you need to record. Remember, even if we're not deleting data, we're not changing data. So if someone, yeah.
I'm sorry, I might be a little bit more behind. When I was going over like the substance use reporting, when it says like heroin, you can only like select one, and like a lot of times our clients not only inject, they also sniff it, they also smoke it. So is there a way that we can like put multiple ways of their use? I feel like that's something that might be useful also. Like if we're able to select like multiple ways of our clients like consuming the drugs.
We can turn that user defined option into a multi-select option, but it does slow down the process because then you have to, if you do select multiple ones, then there's a little OK button that you hit after selecting all the ones that you want, and then it has to fill in. And it becomes a little bit more complicated when you're doing reporting and data analysis, because then you're going to have multiple things populating a particular field. What I would suggest to do instead of doing that is to go in after you've completed this process once, go back into history, do new, and add whatever other ways they're using a particular drug. And then you just have to go to that one form, click it, and then you can update it with as many times as you have ways of using it.
Okay, that can work.
There's sort of positives and negatives of doing it each way.
If I check off multiple values, they all get
I think so. Okay, so I haven't used the reporting function itself, but when I look at the, where you can do a report right from the screen,
Nice.
it just, I think it just.
Yeah.
You can always go in and edit any information.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely can, and you have control over who's allowed to edit. So you can give everyone access to edit, or you could just give like a supervisor or something access. But yeah, you can go in and update. That's no problem. Yeah, absolutely no problem. And that's why you can navigate back with these breadcrumbs also, and you can move through the process. So I'm going very linear right now just to show you all the forms. But you don't just have to go like in that straight line. So you could go to a different form, etc. Okay, so again, there are forms here for capturing like client name history and client address history, right? So you might want to capture that throughout the system. You don't necessarily just want to go change the client profile without recording it anywhere, right? Because then you're not holding that history. It's not being tracked. You're just overwriting, and it's a chart, right? We don't want to like lose history, delete history. So you have forms to capture address and name history in the system. Okay, so there's a referral form in the system. This is not the heirs referral, the outgoing. That's a different form, okay? This is like, how did they come to you, okay? The referral in. Think of this one that way, all right? How did they end up at you? That's what you're capturing on this referral form that prompts through this intake process, okay? So referral date, it populates to the date you're on. Go back and change that. Referral source, right now these are just the UDOs in the system. So again, if you guys as a group decide you need different ones there, you can change those referral sources and referral types, okay? Location. So what location did they show up at to receive services? What were they referred to you at? Okay, this is going to be your location list. It'll just be your 1 or your 3 or whatever, all right? And then referral program. What are they coming for? What program are they referring to? You know, STEP, AIRS, etc. What is the program? There are fields here for capturing referring provider. You don't have to fill this out. If you had to bill out and you had to capture who referred it kind of thing, that's the purpose of that. But they're not mandatory. You do capture one presenting problem. So why are they here? They came to you. They came here for a reason. What's the presenting problem? These are UDOs also. So if you guys decide these need to be different than what they are or something's missing, again, as an organization, you can control what populates here. Okay, so why did they come to you?
Jessica?
Yes.
Sorry. I don't know if you can you go back to that?
Yeah.
Just what I found, if you pick that and then go to the UDO and you type SUB on the search or SUBS, you come up with some substance use options. Yeah, but that's what I've been using. The options go on for pages and pages, what you say. And so in my test, that's what I've been thinking. I don't know, are these related to billing in some way where this is the list, you must pick one of these, or can we edit? Because I think,
You can edit this.
okay, I think for instance, HIV risk behavior or something like that.
Yeah.
It's standard.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes, you can absolutely edit these. These are not a big deal at all. You can edit them to whatever you need. Okay, so once you get through the basics, right, you filled out the forms you needed to fill out, you worked through that IDUHA intake, you can then open the client in the system, intake. So we captured a bunch of data. Now we want to provide them services, okay? So these are ones where you're going to be providing those services. You have to open their chart, open their case, okay? Do the intake form, okay? It's a really simple form. You link it to a referral. It could be they have multiple referrals. Maybe they were referred to you 6 times before they actually decide to receive services, and you wanted to capture all of those referrals, right, before you actually start providing services. That's why you do have the ability for multiple referrals, and you can pick which one this intake is linked to. Okay.
When you finished the referral, it didn't go to insurance?
Yeah.
Mine didn't. Yeah, it should go to insurance. It might be, I'm not sure. So, let's go out to our insurance form. Okay, insurance. So for like AIRS and eShare, this is where you're attaching that to this client, okay? Remember in the system, insurance is payer, okay? You have the ability to assign up to 6 payers for a person. They could be receiving eShare, AIRS, HEBS, okay? And you can prioritize them. It's not going to be as big a deal when your services are separate, you know, with AIRS, eShare, or HCBS, but if you think about it, like someone could have like Medicaid, private insurance, and a pocket, you can eventually like waterfall. So if Medicaid doesn't pay it, you eventually want to charge the payer. So you're giving it the priority, all right? You can only have 1 first, 1 second, 1 third. But it's not going to make a big deal what you assign unless the services like overlap with payers, okay? All right, so your contract, number, effective date, okay? There's other information that can be captured here. Again, if it's not required, you don't have to fill it out. It's there if it's needed. Items like benefits assignment, release of information, these are all necessary for billing, like HCBS, et cetera, services, which is why they're mandatory, but I know, we've looked at the intake process, et cetera. So this is how it's designed right now, but with that RFC, it's going to be easier for you guys, okay?
I'm sorry, just when Jessica said that, we've worked out with CORE, there's going to be a tiered structure where you say the person is anonymous and will bypass
Yes.
some of these things. And then we have two more levels. One is that you have their name, but they're not a billable client, like Medicaid or something. There's a client of your agency receives, they're not anonymous. And then finally, there's the level where it's billable and all of this. If you say somebody's billable, you can't not go back and fill in all this stuff. So we've set it up so based on the kind of services you're giving the client, CORE won't let you give them the services until you put in the information required. But if none of this is required, you won't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's particularly important for those of you who were at previous meetings where we talked about this and we were saying, well, you're gonna have to go through and enter the stars for every social. You're gonna have to just enter nothing for insurance, et cetera. That's not gonna be the case. Once this request for change has been completed, then if it's an anonymous person, you're gonna skip all the things that you don't have to put in.
Okay, but what if we register someone into our SCP and make them an anonymous entry in errors, even though I may be getting their name and some other stuff, I'm not getting their insurance information. Now they're receiving something that's gonna be a billable service.
Yeah.
How will,
You select that, and then it will prompt you to enter that additional information
All
that's
that
required.
information. Won't let you use the services for all of the steps.
Also, if you skip the original, it's gonna be required.
okay.
Yeah, it is going to have that check in there, so you can't go and try to bill if you haven't entered that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In that sense, it is better than yours. Thank you.
Okay. So intake. All right, I know we're losing a lot of people, but I want to focus if we can. Sorry, I know it's fun to play, but we have a lot to cover, so I just want to try to get through as much as we can. You link your intake to a referral. Intake type, again, these are UDOs, all right? So if you're going through this and you decide those are not our intake types, they mean nothing to us, you can update that, okay? All right. By clicking OK, this client is now an open case in the system. So this will show as an open client. We have now considered them part of our organization. We are providing them services, okay? Go to program. So remember how we talked about you have to assign programs to clients, you assign programs to staff, okay? This is where you do it in the client. So this is where you would assign them to the STEP program, etc., HCBS, whatever your programs were. Based on what we select here, says what services I can eventually provide this client. So if I enroll this client in HCBS and not STEP, and they were broken out separately, I wouldn't be able to provide STEP services for this client, okay? I would have to enroll them in both. And that's why finding that right balance is what you need to do, because you'll have to enroll in all the programs, okay? You assign a client to a location. All right, where are they receiving services? And finally, you can assign a client to a staff person. So if these are your billable clients and they have one person who handles their caseload or something, okay, and they're always working with this one individual, you can assign them to that individual. This will talk to those permissions. So if you've decided to restrict the system so people can only see clients that are assigned to them, if you go that granular, this is where that link is made, okay? So again, you don't have to go that granular, but you can, and that's how it happens right here. Okay, so now we're done. We don't have any more little buttons, okay? We just did every single form that we could possibly do in our intake process. All right, we could have gone out and come back in at any time. Different people could have entered that, so it might not be one person sitting there entering all of that information in one session, right? So you can go back out, go back in, but it will prompt you through to try to help you fill out everything you do. Clicking OK is safe. So in the system, yeah, OK is safe. So, all right, so from here, I can go click back on my client chart. Okay. All right, and now I have a, all right, my presenting problem we picked is up here. All right, and we can now go and we can render different services for this client. So I know there were a couple possible scenarios to walk through that we wanted to show as examples. All right, so we've all set up our client so we understand what's happening, why there's a chart, why there's some information in certain places. Now we're gonna like pretend to do stuff that's relevant to you, okay? So that seems to make sense. Another thing I wanted to point out is when you're in the client chart, there are two different views, okay? So we just went through that process and we entered some programs and information and a bunch of stuff. Face sheet view is like an easier way to view some of that information, all right? So this is your at a glance type of information. It's done here on the face sheet view. So just as you're looking at the chart, there's two different ways you can view it. So had we assigned several different insurances to this client, et cetera, instead of having to like click through our workflow, we would be able to just do it right here.
Sorry.
Hmm?
I'll ask you this. Some questions on, I think some of the users aren't able to like go through some of the stuff, but I'll talk about that after.
Okay.
I got a couple.
Okay, so we have a couple scenarios we're going to walk through, all right? So our first scenario, we have a new client that arrives for an intake and would like 20 syringes, a hygiene kit, and 10 male condoms, and then an outgoing referral to a drug treatment program, okay? So we went through the intake process together, all right? We did it, we went through it kind of slow because we were talking about it, but we went all the way through and we filled out all the information we could possibly fill out right now, okay? So how do we go and provide a service? In order to say we did something, we provided a service, those are done on the encounter form, okay? So like encounter equals service. When you open the encounter form, there's a service field, all right? There's some other information like location, etc. All right. So you pick a service, the service that we're providing at this time. Location, where did you provide it? This is only showing my one location because it's the only location my user's been assigned to, okay? And again, this is where the service location concept comes in, all right? So how many locations do you have? Would I have provided it here at Harm Reduction Center, or would I want to say room 32? You know, so that kind of thing is what we're trying to figure out with those locations. What day did you provide the service? It'll automatically default the end date, okay? So it's looking for a start date, end date, but you provided it most likely on the same day, so it's going to default. If you remember when we were in services, setting up durations. So if we need to know that we spent 10 minutes doing this, you know, we can enter 10. If we had set it up as per diem, like the duration doesn't necessarily matter, we could set it up as 1. All right, this is where you're entering duration. Duration is minutes. How long did you spend doing this? Service. So I know you were asking about those billing places of service, office, client, home, etc. That's what this is. place of service. So this is a billing code, okay? So if you're not billing out, it doesn't necessarily matter. You pick where you provided it. When you're sending out those actual bills for like HCBS services, et cetera, they're looking for certain things there. It goes out on the file, but that's what that place of service. Okay, that's why you have location and place of service. Clinician, who provided the service, all right? You want to record that. If you remember, we set up those billing rates. That's where the link is. So it's going to look at a service rate set up for me based on my billing staff pay, all right? So that's why if everyone has the same one, then it's fine no matter what. If you need different ones, it's going to really look at that and make sure that I'm allowed to provide this service, basically. You have the ability to enter notes. But down here, this is where you're able to enter some additional information, all right? These are mapped out to errors, okay? Condoms, etc. You can enter numbers in here, all right? And you're able to enter these here. Okay, so this all goes out in that errors file, okay? And this is where these are entered here on this encounter level. So it's not a direct transfer. What we've done is actually built an export and a file type that AIRS is building a way to receive. So you'll be able to like download it essentially out of this system and then upload it into AIRS once they're ready. Yeah. So all of this, you know, Donald did a lot of work getting all of that there. But so the information we're entering here is actually eventually just going to be downloaded out, and then you can upload it into AIRS. So instead of having to like log in and type into AIRS. Oh, that's okay. Oh, no problem. Okay. So we're going to go look at a utility here in a second, but I want to point out that from this encounter form, you can go and provide a referral straight from here. Okay, so you might have provided a service, you might have, you know, filled out these AIRS fields, but if you need to go provide an outgoing referral, this will take you to a different form. Now, when we did our first referral form, that was like, how did they come to us? Our incoming referral? This is your AIRS outgoing referral, okay? That's the difference here. When we intake them, we have to record, like, why did they show up? How did they end up here? But this is who we're referring them to, okay? We can get here directly from the encounter form, and then I'm going to show you how to get there from the SEP exchange utility, the syringe exchange utility, which is a different, and we're going to go look at that too, okay? But this is like a client that has a chart. You have enough information to have this chart. You're providing services. This is one way we're doing that, okay? We're going to go look at the other piece as well. But from here, we can go ahead and we could make our referral, all right? So referral category, referral service. Now these are looking to each other, okay? So if we were to do alcohol substance uses, referral service is going to populate with ones related to that, okay? So that's what's happening here. Agency, who are you referring them to? All right, does this all look clear to you, this information? Maybe not in this way?
It should look very familiar.
Okay. I know we've got a lot of fried, tired people, so we're trying to make sure the glazed over isn't, we don't recognize that. Okay.
I brought candy for that exact thing. I will start passing out sugar. This is the best.
All right, so you have some fields here for referral information, referral verification, okay? So you're able to enter all of this right there directly going from the encounter. So we provided a service and then we referred them, okay?
Can I ask a question? When you're doing the services, clicking on it saying that my location is not being found. So what would I have to do?
So for you, that's most likely just you weren't, I don't know who you ended up logging in as, but the user probably wasn't set up all the way. Since you're in a test user, yeah, so you as a user probably are not assigned to a location or a program.
Oh.
Okay, So like how I was saying, you know, that's part of troubleshooting, and that's a great question, because that's something that will probably happen in real life as you're getting used to the system and getting it set up the way you need to. It's not populating, it's probably because on that manage user screen, you just weren't assigned to that location.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I didn't put the person in.
No, no, no. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're good. Yep.
I want to just,
Yes, please.
you see referral requires status for export. What this has to do with is eliminating confusion. When you have referrals where you're supposed to say client received service, but you've already exported them to AIRS, and you think you're going to update it in core, you're not. When it says referral requires status for export, it means this is one of a designated set of referrals where we said, if you entered this referral type, we expect you to give a status for it before it exports. So that the information goes into AIRS the way it needs to go into, and we don't wind up with you updating it in core, and then when the AIDS Institute says, you didn't put a status on this, it's in core, right? So what we're expecting is if you are entering a referral that requires a status, you complete that information, or the service and the referral are not going to export until you do.
And this one's red flagged?
We could change which ones are requiring export, but it's not going to go out. In other words, if you want the AIDS Institute to have the information that you entered in core, you have to complete it in core before it will go out. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you.
That's fine if you're just waiting for the appointment to happen. It just won't export with whatever you're currently exporting. And then once you update it, next time you do an export, it'll put it in.
Right.
So it's not like you have to make it up to make sure it goes in. If you're literally waiting to see what happened with that referral, just don't export it. That's fine. And then once it's updated, it will.
Thank you.
No, thank you, and please jump in on any points like that. Like, okay, I want to show you, this was all the client chart, right? This is assuming we know information about a client, we know enough to open a chart, even after we, you know, make that change for the 3-tiered structure, and we want to do it this way.
No, thank you. Special education. No. Thanks. That's the kind of data program saving. You know, like, to hit tab, it breaks what you found.
I think it's just for waiting it out because, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go look at a utility, all right, for syringe exchange. So we built the utility for the syringe program, and where you can enter that information, and it's going to actually link into our client chart. So I want us all to note something. So here, how we've entered like an AIRS ID, agency ID, eShare ID, okay? These are associated with this client, right? So when we go in to our utility called syringe exchange sessions, okay? I come in and I enter a new one. Site, where was it conducted? Who did it? Date. Close the program. Okay.
This looks familiar.
Save the record. We have another tab here at the top, okay? This is like saving our master record, right? We're going to associate other stuff with it. Like the day, what we did, where we did it, who did it, okay? Syringe exchange transaction. New. Client. Agency ID, okay? So it's referencing the agency ID. Let's see if I find mine. Here was my guy, my client. Syringe is in. Syringe is out. Reason, excuse me. Street location. Where was it? You can actually select one street. You could select intersecting streets. Okay. Street location 1, street 2. All right. You're able to track where did you actually do it. You can add a comment if you want. We also have these additional fields here. So in addition to syringes, what did we Okay. We've got some more fields here. We could do save as new. All right. So what if we saw 8 people here at the corner of Harmon and Brunswick? I don't want to have to click that again. So I can save as new. It'll copy over some basic information. Then copy the street. All right. So we can save as new. We can go straight to a referral. So we don't have to be in the client chart to do a referral. We have their number. We've already identified them. From here, we can go straight to our referral. Okay. We could also go to the encounter. So back to the encounter form to say we provided a service that's in addition to this. So we didn't just do a syringe transaction, provide condoms, etc., but say we needed to, we were providing an additional service. And I lost my service, but we were going to. All right, so if we went straight here from the encounter.
So you see built in with the client and the site and the date and all that?
So it is carrying that information through, all right? So we provided the syringe transaction. This person already had a number. We know who they are. And we provided safer injection education. Instead of having to find the client chart, figure out who they were, get in there, open the encounter, we can just carry it straight on through. It identified who it was. So it's just navigating for us. We can go in either way. And it's depending really on how you're interacting with the person, right? So if you're mostly doing the syringe exchange, you'd be working in that utility. You can do multiple records at a time. You know, you're going off those numbers. You can come into the chart if needed. You could go straight to an outgoing referral. If you're doing more like something one-on-one with a person, or you're getting into like the services and you're in the chart, you can go straight to the encounter. So you do have both ways you can do it.
Nice.
So basically,
No. Once you start, you'll be putting them.
There's another utility I want to show you guys. So here on utility, that's where your syringe exchange sessions is, okay? Remember, I have every utility turned on. So you're not going to have all of them. This is just all of the ones that are there that are available. You can get them. And if we have time at the end of the day, I can briefly explain what some of these do. So if you're curious, you can go look at them in more detail. So you're only going to have the utilities really that you're interested in, okay? But I do want to show you one for groups, okay? So in the system, there's a way to set up groups. You can set them up in advance. So say you meet with the same 10 people, give or take, on a continual basis. You don't want to have every single time you meet, say this person, this person, this person, this person came, because it's moderately similar. You can pre-set up that group. You're able to add and subtract people from that group, okay? But it's just kind of saving some entry time. And then you're able to provide services to the group as a whole. So again, you're not having to go into each individual's record and say, I did this. You can say, I did this for the group, and it will then apply it to all of the individuals, okay? So there are 2 utilities that handle that. Group client, this is where you go and create that group. You set that up that first time and say, we typically do it with these people. And later on, we can change who actually showed up, because everyone's not necessarily going to show up, right? But we can kind of predefine. All right, so I set up a little demo group for you. But so you kind of have this first original record, right? Name your group. Who are they? This could be like the Wednesday group. Whatever it needs to be that you're going to know what group it is. Okay. Who is the clinician? You got to have one clinician at least, one staff member assigned to this group. You could assign a different one as well. It's not saying they're the only ones who can administer this group or work this group. It's just kind of making a link ownership of that group, okay? Start date. When did the group form? If we say it formed today, the system isn't going to let me say it met yesterday, okay? So this is that systems checking again. So if you say it's tomorrow, it's only going to let you kind of perform in the future.
Can we assign one staff to the same group? Let's say, for instance, staff goes out, the group still has us.
Yeah.
So you could assign and put in.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you can do that. So you're kind of signing the one here, but if we go and actually say this group met, we can change it. Okay. Program. So the group allows you to pull into it based on the program they're enrolled in. All right. So is this the STEP program, HCBS, etc. Okay. It's going to identify clients in that program and then say they are eligible for the group. Okay. It's not going to automatically enroll them in the group. It's checking who's eligible, essentially. Okay. Group strength. This maximum group size. If I say my group is 40, it will not let me say 41 people. Okay, if it doesn't matter how big your group is, make it a really big number. If you're only allowed to meet with 10 people, you would want to set it at 10. Okay, so that's what group strength. It's how many people are allowed to be in this group. You can enter a maximum number of sessions. This is not mandatory, but maybe this group is only allowed to meet for funding reasons or whatever 20 times. If you put a 20 here, it's going to tick down for you, okay? So once you hit that 21, it's going to say, hey, you said it 20, you need to go do something, all right? And then you can provide a description, just a little more information about the group. So Wednesday group, we meet to discuss X, Y, Z or something, okay?
The number of the group strength, that say if it were just kind of say from today, based on a 12 months, or is it based on?
It's just kind of total. So no more than 40 people can be in that group, okay? But it's not, we're going to enroll and unenroll people.
I'm sorry, so it's number of sessions.
Sessions is total. Sorry, we can do sessions. Sessions is total over the course of time. So you can always, if you did have sessions and they were only allowed to meet 20 times a year, say, you could then update it for the next year and you would have another 20 kind of thing. Just total forever, only 20 times for that one group. Okay. All right, so we had our group. Group clients. This is where we go and assign clients to the group, okay? This is pre-setting it up. This isn't saying who actually showed up, but this is to save you time when your group meets. If your group meets twice a week, you don't necessarily want to say these 25 people showed up all the time. It will populate with the people, and then you can go in and make changes, all right? So we're just setting it up ahead of time, and then I'll show you how to actually say you met, all right? So here you can see we've already enrolled some clients. We could come and say, I need one more client. So to add a client to our group, it's really simple. It's populating with a list of people in the program we specified, okay? So this is people that were enrolled in that program. All right, let's put Mickey Mouse in. Start date, when do they enroll? When are they allowed to participate in this group? All right, so now Mickey is in our program, in our group. Now our group meets. Group encounter. All right, remember encounter in the system is saying we provided a service. So group encounter would be we provided a service to all these people. New group encounter. What day did you meet? What is the name of your group, right? So we need to be able to recognize what our group is. Where did you meet? Program. What did we do? This is our service, okay? Place of service. So group, similar to Encounter, this can generate a bill, okay? So it has this place of service because that's needed for like Medicaid billing. You do have to pick something. If it's not actually being billed out, it's not necessarily as important that that code is right, but for like coding HCBS, et cetera, that's where you would designate the office, community, client's home, et cetera.
You probably already said this, but you can sign people up for multiple programs?
Yes. Yeah, they can be enrolled in as many programs. You can also like enroll and unenroll them at different times in different programs. So it's not like you enroll them all at once and discharge them all at once. You could like enroll in one and then enroll another one later, kind of thing. All right, how long? Duration, 30 minutes. User admin, you can make notes. So here on this form, notes for the group as a whole. Okay, we talked about this as a group. All right. When you save this record, it populates down here with a grid, all right? It pulled all of my clients in that I had already identified as part of this group, and it pulled them in for me, all right? So I don't have to go and say these 25 people showed up. I already said these 25 people are part of the group, so it's prompting me. I can then come in and say, hey, you know what, this person, they didn't make it, all right? Maybe this person wasn't actually there for the full 30 minutes. They came in late, so I can adjust their duration. All right, and I can say came late. All right, so you're able to go in and update based on what showed what actually happened. Somebody new drops by. All right, they weren't enrolled in the group previously. You hadn't already set them up. They can still come as long as they're allowed to participate in this group. I don't have to go back all the way into the group, go through that. I can just add them here, all right? So if I do a new client, it will populate with people who are eligible to be added to this group based on program, who isn't already in there, you know, that kind of thing, okay? Again, this is looking to that program matters, okay? Because it's identifying who's allowed to receive services based on that program they're enrolled in. And again, I can say they were here for 25 minutes. All right. And that client was already in there, so it's not going to let me put them in there twice. All right. So it is watching to make sure that you're not making those mistakes as well. All right. So this says the group met. This encounter, they'll actually show up in each individual client's chart. Okay. So just because we're recording them here, we would want to see if we were in that client's chart. This is going to show up. So you are tracking all of those services in that client chart, okay? It's keeping track in that encounter list for everybody. If this is available, process group encounter is basically, so if you do your workflow, the group meets, you do your notes for the group as a whole, you come down, make individual notes maybe, say who was here, who wasn't here, add people. Process group encounter is kind of like, I'm done. It's finalized, I agree with all this, I'm good. All right, so you can go ahead and process. And it's like locking it in. Because there is the additional people flexibility with this, there's that one more step. Where in Encounter, you don't have to say process, it automatically processes for you. Because we're like adding and removing people and editing. That's why we have that one more step to just say, yes, this is done. All right, so that's,
Can you put individual notes?
Yeah.
Progress notes?
So if you click in, yeah. So when I was in the grid view, it was just a very small little box. But yeah, it is actually a large box and it expands. Okay. So for real estate's sake, the boxes automatically collapse just so you're not seeing like a huge white blank box on your screen. But any boxes that have this little lines in the corner, you can actually drag and expand so you can see as you're typing. Okay. Links. Any questions about kind of that group functionality? And if we come here into our client chart, and I'm just looking at the encounter, my group is kind of pulling in here. So this is actually a place where you could go and see all of the services that client has received over time, regardless of if they were provided individually, in a group, etc. This is like your history of all the services this client has received. Okay. All right. I'm not sure if this is something that you would need, but I want to point out what this is because you'll notice it when you get into your system. We have a census. Encounters generate bills, group encounters generate bills. Census can also generate bills. It doesn't have to, but it's kind of about just marking if someone was present or absent. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to really record a lot of individual information, but you're saying they were there or they weren't there, and you need to be able to track that. You can do it based on days or based on minutes. So a typical day example would be like residential, right? Were they in the bed? Were they not in the bed? Minutes, sometimes people will use them for like daycare kind of scenarios, but we need to know they were here for 90 minutes today, 120 minutes, etc. Okay. With the group, census is based on program. So service, do you want minutes or days? Do you want to track like present, absent, or how many minutes they were there? Year, you run census by month. Okay, so by month by program is basically how the census is set up. So I'm going to pick 2016, November. What program were we doing? Where was it? And then what service? Okay, so what service were you providing? Let's just pick that one. Place of service, again, because this does have the ability to create a bill, place of service is like a mandatory eventual billing field, which is why it's here. Okay. Doesn't like my service. All right. So my service I picked was most likely per diem. It said, hey, you can't do a per diem service by minutes, which is why it was yelling at me. All right. So here's the one we've created. If we want to go in and view our census, we click Census Details. And what it did is it just pulled in every client in that program into this census for me. Okay. From here, I can edit individual lines, and you're able in the back end, I haven't set up the pre-definitions for this, but to define what means they were there, that they received the service, and what didn't. So it might be X, it might be present, absent. Okay. So you're saying what means they were there, what means they were not there. So present, present, present. Okay. Yeah, I didn't set that up. So, and it's recognizing that P is not a valid entry. Okay. So you would say what means yes, what no. You're able to go in, edit kind of across the grid that way. I could click on an individual and it'll populate here, and I could go down and edit this way as well. So you can do it all at the end of the month. You can kind of do it by day. You're able to go in and kind of track all of it. Again, if this is something you're using for billing, it will track the status of each claim, whether something was an error, et cetera, they paid it. But you don't need to be tracking this for billing. If you just need to be using this to track programs, did people show up that or not? This is a really easy way to kind of track that basic. So again, I don't know if this is something for your individual organizations you think is relevant or useful, but I just want to show you that this tool is here, okay?
Okay, this can also be useful when we're tracking down our recording parts to make sure our clients' services don't get discontinued. I can see this as a way for us to like give the rest of the care coordination case managers access to know like when certain clients are coming to our site, like that we're on that. Hey, we're here to use the drop the sensor to use staff or to use or whatever. So I do think it will be very useful in the long run. Yeah.
Okay, great, good. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the errors stuff, but I want to just touch on anything else you may find useful as well. So, at the beginning, I talked a little bit about the scheduler, right? You can use the scheduler, you don't have to use the scheduler. It's not mandatory from a system standpoint. If you do use the scheduler, though, there's some additional functionality kind of throughout the system that looks at the scheduler. So say we were to schedule appointments, and I knew somebody was going to drop by today. They were supposed to be here at like 2 o'clock. Okay. When setting up an appointment in the scheduler, you're able to set up 3 different types of appointments. A client appointment, I expect one person to be here, okay? You can set up a group appointment. So how we just built our group, I can then schedule that group. If I were to schedule that group and I had those 15 people in it, it would automatically bring all 15 in for me. So I'm not having to click each individual name. They're coming at 2 because I said the group's coming at 2. You can also set up staff meetings on the scheduler. So they don't involve the client at all, you know, just staff or blocking out time. Okay, so you're able to do all 3 here on the scheduler. Who's it for, right? You're scheduling a person. All right, basic kind of stuff. Location, where are they expected? This is where you say client, staff, or group. All right, the time, you know, basic, just registering stuff. Client. So I'm saying this is a client appointment. I obviously have to tie this to a client. If you start typing in this field, it'll begin to populate based on what you're typing. Okay, so it's going to prompt you depending on what you've been typing in to help you figure out where your client is. We're going to go ahead and schedule that one. We're setting up a client appointment, so we're scheduling a service most likely. So you begin typing and you find your service. Add them. You have an appointment. All right, we all know how to basically use a calendar. So part of why I'm going through this right now is in utilities, there's something called front desk management. Again, no idea if this is useful or relevant, but I do want to show you this functionality. If you have scheduled appointments, groups, clients, etc., okay, so, and you need to be able to see that they're here, arrived, and you want to be able to track that. Someone's sitting at the front desk, someone walks up and says, hey, I have an appointment. You can come in, search for their name, all right, so I, test client 1, think I have an appointment today. Come in, and then I search. The system is going and looking at scheduler, and it's saying, hey, you are correct, test client 1. You have an appointment. I can then come in, and I can check them in, all right, to say arrived. If they had a copay, this is what this is. So you're able to like set up copays in the system. Obviously, if you're not setting up copays, there isn't going to be information here, but that's what that amount is. So if they owe some type of money, it would show here so that it could be collected. You don't have it, that's fine. And then just the date. And again, if you are collecting payments, this other part is it will actually track the payment was received in the system, which is this reference and payment. All right, so you're able to kind of track, acknowledge someone's here, it'll go and update on the calendar saying they're arrived. So it does talk to other pieces of the system, okay? One more item. I wanted to just point out is there's a call log in the system. All right, so the reason you would use this call log is people are they're interested in information, but maybe they're not applying in the system, and you just want to track it. This is a way you can track calls. You can log them. So over time, maybe someone calls like 8 times before they actually come in to receive services. You're able to track that information. When they eventually come in, you can actually go in through the call log, and based on the information you've typed here, so you see a lot of this information is not mandatory, name, etc., because you might not get that over the phone. If we did capture any of this information, from here, when I save, I can open the client chart directly from here, and it'll pull in any of the data I've already entered. So if I'm entering their name and stuff in the call log, I don't want to have to re-enter that when I decide they're going to be a client. So that's just what's happening here. It's giving you the ability to track a history of people calling, and then eventually converting to a client of any nature, whatever level that would be. Okay, so that's just what this call log is. are some utilities, and I'm not sure how much detail we should go in on all the AIRS utilities, but I can point them out and we can talk about them. But there are some utilities that have been built in for that AIRS export. So a lot of work has been by Donald and everybody to design the export in the system. Right now, we can export a file that meets AIRS standards. You know, those different fields we were pointing out with all the syringe exchanges and the services and, you know, that additional fields for condoms, okay, that all can be exported into AIRS. And it does work here with an export utility. When AIRS is ready to receive that file, you will be able to export directly out of the system and then import it into AIRS, okay? A couple other utilities have been built to kind of help with that process. There's a referral sources library. And this, again, is pre-populated. There are almost 1,900 records in here, and this is what's talking to that outgoing referrals form, okay? So when we were doing those AIRS outgoing referrals and we were able to pick the source, it's talking to this piece right here, all right? And again, because everyone's going to be able to do this in the system, and I'm not sure who exactly administrative-wise is going to be updating all of it, but I want to point out everything that's here, okay? So this is that library that's tracking all of those outgoing referral sources. And if you notice on any of these records, let's click it. You know, there's a lot of information that's in here. Yeah, so you have the ability, and I don't think that would necessarily be an issue, but yeah, you can go in and add a new record.
Yes, you can to this. Jamie did her best to take like all the different referral agencies from like every one of the IGF programs together and make a master list. It's impossible to do it perfectly, so yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you would click new referral, and then you would go in and fill out. There's not that much information that's mandatory, so you can go in and fill out the information you have. And then this will populate in that outgoing referral for you when you enter it.
Yes.
The export utility, this is where you actually go to export that file, okay, for AIRS. Right now it's just AIRS. Eventually eShare will have an export, okay? But this is where you go in, that file can actually be exported. The utility itself is fairly straightforward, okay? There's a lot that's going on in the back end, but you have a date range, all right? What range are you for these services? And again, you know, as an organization, do you do it daily, weekly, monthly? You know, it's your range kind of thing. All right. Generated, not generated. So able to kind of run a file, see how it is. When you actually export and you do it for real, it'll flag it in the system. So you can't export it again. Okay. So testing, you know, you can run it without flagging it, and that's why you have the generated, not generated. And I'm not going to run it right now because I don't want to flag your records, but you can't export twice, right? Because you wouldn't want to submit the same file to AIRS twice. So the system will actually identify what records have been exported, and it will prevent doing that again. Okay, so yeah, please.
Right, and ideally, you know, a lot of this hasn't been completely worked out because we've now got something that exports services based on the specifications that were provided to us by the agency. They have not made something which imports, but in theory, when you import it to AIRS, it's going to spit out a list of records it didn't import, which you can then load to core, and it will unmark those as exported. So only exported records which actually get successfully into AIRS will remain marked as exported in core. And the ones that didn't go in will be available for export at such time as you fix what was wrong with them. Which, God willing, will never happen, because it will be so beautiful. But right now, what we're really waiting on is the AIRS end of it. The other piece, just to say so, is it's not gonna export a record unless you say, remember when I said, like, here's where it sucks up your planning file and you point services to that? Those are the only services it's never gonna export. If you didn't take a service and point it to a record in your AIRS planning file, it assumes something else and not for AIRS. So that's, you have to, for every AIRS service that you want exported, you have to, like, first put the service, set up the service in Core, but then tell Core through the processes available in Core, this is a record we want to go to AIRS, and here's the mapping in AIRS from the planning file we expect it to export with. Thank you. Yeah. There's a witness side. Something about the IP share.
So right now, that's the AIRS Export utility. Again, I know the eShare conversations are moving forward, and eventually when that's ready, and we have all the specs, it'll be built, and there'll be some similar kind of export in here for eShare. Okay. So right now, AIRS is in there. It works. We're waiting on AIRS to be able to accept it, and then we should be ready to go, hopefully. Nothing's really changed that much. eShare, I know there's been some talk, and hopefully it's moving forward, and we'll be able to get that done quickly. So, and that'll also be here somewhere on the utility.
Can we see the AIRS mapping utility for just a second?
Yeah. I have to go turn it on for me.
So theoretically, at some point, we'll just be able to enter everything in here and then export it to AIRS and eShare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the original kind of concept and grand plan, is that you're not going to be entering, you would never want to enter here, enter an AIRS, and enter an eShare, right? And hopefully you don't want to enter an AIRS and eShare. So you would be entering it here, and then you would be able to export into both of them. So you're eliminating that kind of having to go multiple places to enter data.
So once we export data from Core, are we exporting it to AIRS and then uploading it to HRS, or uploading it straight to HRS for the extraction?
Oh, it's gonna go into AIRS and then you do your extract like normal from AIRS. It's like, what this export does essentially is you do your data, but when you import it into AIRS, AIRS is pretending that you entered it into AIRS. And you still have to do that step when you send the extract to AIRS.
And silly question, the previous client list that is in AIRS and or eShare, not going to be able to import into Core, are we? We're going to have to enter every individual into Core. That's yes. Okay.
Yes. And you will have tools, those are planned, where in entering their, because every client in AIRS has its system ID from AIRS, that's like, it's got those 2 letters followed by a big long string of numbers. Rather than having you enter all of those manually into Core, what we're working on right now is tools where you can have a list of clients from AIRS that Core will read, and you can say, this client I just entered into Core, I mean this client in AIRS, so that the code is handed from one system to another. Because one thing I'll tell you, like in terms of the export, you can type it, and if you type the code wrong, then it's just going to kick it back to you as this is the wrong code, and it's up to you to figure out what's wrong. We want to eliminate as much of that as possible and make, I realize it's not easy to get a system that's on the web to talk to a system that's sitting on your server, but we're covering that as much as we can. This is where you upload the planning file to. If you go to new AIRS mapping utility, this is exactly like you say choose file. This is exactly like how you upload a planning file in yours. You say, I need this planning file, and you point to it, and then it's up to them.
And I don't have one to show you to upload,
No,
so, but yes. No, so I mean, it's great. And actually the way this was designed, I think is gonna be really helpful, so it was really good. I have to say, I appreciate how it was designed, because yeah, it'll make it so much easier, because you can just upload that information, you're not having to go in and key it, and it will populate. This is what was talking to that reimbursement tab, or when we picked something, it was pulling in all of those codes and stuff, so we weren't having to go in and hand type them all, so. Okay. We covered a lot of the basics of like client, basics of intake. There are other areas in the client chart. There's obviously a lot of forms in here. Okay, there's a lot that comes in and out of the box deployment. When we deploy our system, we give you everything we give everybody else. Okay, so it's like a fully functional EHR. Might be stuff in here that's completely relevant to you, but you have it. You can go in and turn them off. You can go through, decide what you like, what you don't like. There's a treatment plan builder in here. I'm going to show you a couple of the other key items. And then, I want to have time for questions, and I did want to the finance tab, because I know especially with HCBS, and people who are seeing the demo tomorrow, are going to see more of it. But I do want to touch on it. But please let me know if you have any other questions. You guys have been good about jumping in, but I want to make sure we cover whatever you're most concerned about kind of thing while we're here. So how we were talking about authorizations, and the system can track if someone has a valid authorization or not. Here in the client chart, there is a way to enter the authorization. So that information, if you received it and they were authorized for like 20 visits or something, that type of information is entered here in the client chart. And it will actually track. So if you say for service A, I'm authorized 20 visits, every time you say you perform service A, the system will count down until you run out of visits, and then it'll say, hey, you're not authorized anymore, go get a new one, all right? We talked a little bit at the beginning about alerts, tasks, okay? You can assign them to other people, they can be automated, that type of thing. One way that's done is here in the to-do form in the client chart, okay? So when you're in a person's client chart, and this is just one way that's done, this is not like the automated per se, but you can assign tasks. The supervisor could go in and say, hey, for so-and-so, you need to review this, etc. Task names, these are again UDOs, okay? So they're pre-populated, but they could be any task names that they have to be. So again, if you guys need to standardize them, but you have control over task names. So it could be call this person, reach out, contact, review their information, another release is coming due, anything like that. Something you need to remind people of can be done with a task, all right? Let's just say, why not, diagnosis due, all right? When does this have to be completed by, all right? I need to tell someone that they need to get a diagnosis entered for this person. They need to complete it by the end of next week. This is our due date, all right? So let's say I want it completed by the 25th. Assigned by, I am assigning this to Donald. Okay. So it has to be assigned by somebody and assigned to somebody. The assigned to person, it's going to show up in their My Tasks on that dashboard. If you remember that very first place we were this morning, it's going to show up there, all right? And because I assigned it, it's going to show up in the My Pending Tasks for me. It'll show up in Donald's tasks, but My Pending Tasks, because I want to track and see if Donald actually did it, okay? Yeah?
You have to go through a client in order to assign a task?
For this type of task, there are ways to set up like automated ones and ones that aren't even necessarily specific in that way. But yeah, for this manual type of task, you would have to go into the client. Okay. Notification methods. So there's two-way tasks can show up. My page, which is a dashboard that we looked at, okay, and then reports. You could say you only want it in My Page or you only want it in reports. Best practice, you want it in both. You're going to want, if you run a report to see it, you're going to want it in My Page. We always say select both, but if for some reason you didn't want those tasks to be showing up on the My Page or something, you can just say only put it in the report. Typically, you just pick both, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be assigned only to one person, like task?
With this form. So there are other ways to build like automated ones, and you could assign it to a staff type. Okay, so you could assign it to multiple. But in this one we're in right now, it's only to one person. Okay. The other one can be handled, it's on the configuration menu, and you're able to like program simpler ones. We can also go in and code harder ones. But you can assign those to multiple people. But just on this one form, it is one person. Okay. All right, so we said it was due on the 25th. Alert time. If it's due on the 25th, I should probably warn them that it's due on the 25th, right? So I want it to show up before it's, so I want it to show up in 5 days. All right, 2 weeks, that kind of thing. All right, when are you going to warn them that it's coming due?
And that's 2 days before the to be completed by?
Yes.
Seems like it'd be a lot easier if you could just put a time and date.
Yeah.
Maybe alert. I mean, if you say 2 hours to midnight of that, or 12:01 a.m. on that day?
Yeah, so most alerts fire overnight. You can do hours. Some alerts can be scheduled to fire every 20 minutes. There's different ways the alert engine runs. They're not necessarily instantaneous because the system in the back end makes calls at certain times. Okay, which is why sometimes, like when we were updating our users, we said it could take up to 20 minutes depending on how hard it was. But, you know, if you think about it in this way, like with a lot of these, they might be scheduled really far out. So you did an intake for a client and you know in 6 months you're going to have to redo something. You can set it up right then and then tick it way out. And so instead of saying, I want this due on January 1st of 2018, and then trying to figure out what 2 weeks was before it, you can just say 2 weeks. So that's the intention of why it was designed. So you're not like having to actually like count. But again, you know, this is like the basic functionality we're giving you. There are other ways, more like sophisticated alerts in, but this is just a basic, you know, hey, you need to do this kind of thing. All right, status. So it defaults to not started because it was a brand new alert, right? But there's like a workflow with it. So when I create a new alert, you can then come in and you can update your status. Okay, so is it in progress? Was it completed? All right, so you're able to track that workflow and the status of any alert. Again, as this is moving through, being completed, etc., the status is going to show up in the My Pending tasks of whoever had assigned it. So at a glance, you'll be able to see, hey, has anybody done this? Is it still outstanding? Are they working on it? That kind of thing. And as you go through, so if you say completed, it's going to say what date was it completed on.
The alert, will that work like pop up like in Google Calendars?
It does, no, so it doesn't pop up like that, and that's because it's not like instantly calling, so it's going to go to My Tasks. So it's one of those,
If I log in, do I see like my task, if, let's say Brent assigned something to me and I log in, do I see like on my task thing, like it's a different color or flashing or something to let me know, okay, someone's.
You're going to see it in there, and they are color-coded, and the color will change depending on if you're like doing good, so it's still like 3 weeks out in the future. If you're starting to come up on your due date, it's yellow. If you've passed your due date, it's red. All right, so it is giving a little bit of that prompt, like how are you doing this task? Do you have some time? All right. All right. So there are a lot of like standard assessments. I know, you know, the IDUHA ones were built into that intake, you know, and there's a lot of stuff, but there are kind of other ones in here, so like a biopsychosocial, this has like military history, mental health history, so some just standard forms that come deployed. So I would just suggest, you know, when you get in, go look around, see if any of them are relevant. You may not have to build forms. They may already be in there. It might be close to what you need or exactly what you need, okay? So there's a lot that comes with it. I'm not going to take the time and make you go through all of them right now. All right. So really quickly, well, I guess, do we have any other questions about that client aspect? All right, I'm going to move on now to like the financial and the reporting really quick. But any kind of client exchange, those utilities, do we have any other questions about those right now? Okay. Okay. So like I've been saying, the system, you know, the system wants to bill. That's what it wants to do at the end of the day. We don't have to use it to bill, but it does have the full billing functionality already in there, okay? So day you get your login, the system can generate an electronic bill, an 837, it can generate a CMS 1500, there's a ledger, we can track payments, accept electronic remittances, so if we send a bill to somebody and they pay us, they can send us an electronic file that says what they paid us. We can upload it into the system, and the system will actually go and post all of those payments to the client. So all of that functionality is built into the system. A couple things, I'm just going to point these out kind of at a high level. Generate bills. This is where you would go in to generate a bill for a client. All right. So bills are generated by contract. All right, contract was associated to payer, if you remember. They're generated by contract because you may have multiple contracts for a single payer, and they might all have like slightly different requirements, right? That's why we're not doing it based on the payer solely, but we're doing it on contract because there might be reasons that you're billing them separately. See if I pick a contract that's out. All right, so contract. Format. In CX360, you have the ability to attach any of these 4 billing files. All right, they're already loaded in the system. There's the basic standard in the system. Many payers will want something slightly different on the file, and you're able to make those changes yourself. So if they want like an NPI instead of an EIN or something, that can be changed. But the functioning file is already in here for the 837 CMS 1500. In contracts, we were attaching billing files. Okay, so kind of as a quick refresher. This billing template, this is what it's saying, what type of file I am allowed to generate when I'm in that generate bill. If I don't have a template attached to my contract, I can't because I didn't tell the system how to generate the bill, right? You have to tell it what to do. So if we want to generate a bill, we have to pick what we want to use, all right? So if I attach to this contract an 837, I can then go into generate bills, and I could generate that file. All right, so our file, we named it test for our 837. It's recognizing that we have attached this. We could generate a file. All right, so we could search and see if there were any claims. There are no claims for this contract, all right? But any services that have been provided on this contract that are not already filled are going to pull it. You have the ability to filter by month, et cetera, week. You can filter it down. So this is going to pull in any claims you have said, create this claim, and they haven't already been billed, they'll pull here. You can then go in and select and unselect. So if you don't actually want to bill them all out, you can remove some, et cetera. All right. You generate a file, and it will actually go take all of that information in the system, think a little bit, and it will give you a file you can download. All right. So we 37, so it'll generate that text file that you're then able to submit to a payer. If it was a paper one, like a CMS 1500, it'll give you a PDF you can print out, etc. Had we pulled in some claims, after I generate my file, it generates successfully, I can then mark these claims as billed, which is flagging it in the system. I billed these. I'm expecting someone to give me some money. Don't bill them again. Any claims that are billed will not pull in here. We can't bill them again if they're just in billed. Right? So there's a whole life cycle of a claim where if we bill it, we're waiting to see if they pay it. They can either pay it, deny it, etc. But essentially, marking it as billed flags it as billed. We can't bill it again. It's already been billed out, and we're waiting to hear back what happened. Okay. Bill register runs a report of what went out in that file. All right. Ledger. You have a client and a ledger in the system, okay? This will pull up, so in those encounters, we were providing services, all right? If we were creating some kind of charge, whether it was $0, $100, might get paid for it, we might not, we can pull that information up here in the ledger. It will show us information. We can post payments against it. We can write them off. We can deny it, okay? All of that information is here. You have this functionality in the ledger. So let's see. I'm going to do client, and I'm going to pull my person up that we've been kind of working with today because I know I have something in there. All right, so I find my client, click search. Oh, I apparently did not create any claims. All right, fine. Let's see if Mickey might give us some claims. Okay, well, we don't have a lot of claims in the system. We've been playing with the test system, but it will populate with all of the claims based on your criteria. All right, so let's see. Now, this is only populating claims, right? So if we haven't flagged our reimbursements, do you remember where we talked about that little checkbox? And we said if you want a claim, a charge, you have to check it. If you don't, you provide those services, but it won't create a claim. If we didn't create a claim, it won't pull up here in our ledger because there's no charge. It never created that claim. Okay, so this is only going to be dealing with those items that you've designated creating a claim. But you are able to go in, that kind of information, and really kind of see any kind of financial tracking. And I know when they go through all the HCBS stuff, anyone who's going to attend that or listen to the recording, they'll go into this in detail. But this is where you can really keep track of payments you've received and kind of make adjustments on them, et cetera, and make them available for rebilling if it was denied or something. So a couple times today I've said, if based on that information we entered in configuration, like our service rates or our date or our staff type, if we made a mistake and it was wrong, so if we tried to provide a service but we weren't the right staff type, it would error out. So any encounters that the system determined not valid based on the rules you set up in configuration, they move here to the error log, okay? This shows you what your issues are so you can then correct them, okay? So encounter ID, every encounter has an individual identifier, okay? So that's what these are. Who, the client name, program, service, location. Over here, though, error description. This is telling you why here, okay? It'll help you troubleshoot. You can see the different ones. So right now it looks like we're having some issues with program and reimbursement. All right, reimbursement not found. There's a good chance that either there was no reimbursement record created or we got staff type wrong, okay, or our date range ended. So maybe these all were only set to end in like October and now we're in November, so these aren't valid, all right? So from here you can go in, see where the issues are, and make adjustments. Again, if we're not creating claims, nothing's going to move here to the error log. This is dealing with claims. Okay, so if you're not checking those services to create claims, then we're not erroring like this. They're not necessarily moving in here because we don't even have a claim. But if these are services that you do want to be tracking for monetary reasons, maybe because you're like reporting to a grant, or internally you want to know how much are we spending to do this service, or for ones that are billable and you're going to really see the status of those claims that you're having at the time of the data entry. Okay, so if your staff are forgetting to click diagnosis or something like that, we'll move to the error log. Any claim that's in the error log cannot be pulled into a bill until you fix the issue. All right, we set up all of those validations because the payer said they're not going to pay us unless it's right? So we don't want to bill them if we know they're going to reject it. So that's what this error log is. It's holding those claims so you can fix them. Now, ideally, you would go in, you would see that this client doesn't have a program, you would just go in, fix it, resave it, and the error would clear. Okay, so ideally, you want to easily clear all these errors. There are a couple ways you can clear errors from the error log. So in Eve's case, we enrolled her in the program, we solved the problem. We could process her claim without override. Basically, that's just resaving it. It's like telling the system to recheck, okay? And then if everything's good, it'll move to the error log. We could also process the claim with override. So this is saying we don't care there's an error. We know we didn't fix it. We want to get it out of the error log and we want to bill it. Sometimes we do this if you ran out of authorizations and you're running up against a deadline. Sometimes there's like timely filing deadlines and you have to submit it. So you're going to submit it, you know it's going to get rejected, but you would rather deal with rebilling it than lose the money altogether. So that's the kind of instance where you would do it with override. You know there's a problem, but you just need to get it out. Okay, so that's override. And then you can just write claims off as well. So it's in here, we know no one's ever going to pay us for it. There's no reason to bill it. We can just write it and then we can clear it that way. So those are the three different options here with the error log. Again, if we're not creating claims for our services, we're not going to be dealing with this, all right? But if we are creating claims, we're doing it of that HCBS billing, or we just want those claims to be able to track our own internal costs, then we may be working with this error log, and it's going to tell you if you've gotten like your date ranges wrong and stuff. All right, so how is saying we can, through generate bills, generate an electronic bill and submit it to a payer. Okay, so we can take all of this information, create this electronic file that we then give to our payer, HCBS, etc. And based on that, they pay us. They can then send us an electronic file. Some will send paper, some will send an electronic file. We import that file, the 835, all right? And the system will then take all of the information in there and it will post it back to the client, to the claim, to the encounter, okay? So if we build a service and they paid it, it will automatically post that payment against the service. It'll update the status. It'll show what came back, when it came back, etc. If it was denied or only partially paid, it'll populate that information automatically for us. If we get information back from our payers in a paper fashion, we would have to go into the ledger and manually post it, okay? So importing 835 takes that manual posting, but if they're not sending it, you can manually do it as well. But that's what's here. So again, it's pretty basic in the sense that you go, you pick your file, you post it, and it will then go and post all of those payments throughout the system. All right, so the last one I just want to show you here is you do have the ability to generate statements for patients. Okay, it's like a printed statement saying what the patient owes, or even just all the payment history in general. So let's see what happens if we pull him. All right. So in the patient statement, this is pulling the address that was set up with company, okay? This is the information, so this is Mickey Mouse's statement. The date, none of this has been designated patient responsibility, okay? If the services and the way they were set up said the patient owes this money, that would show up here in this pay this amount, all right? Here, this is showing the contracts and stuff, the stuff you build out, all right? So that's why we have a 0 up here. But if these were all out-of-pocket payments, you would see the service, the charge, and then the total. There's also aging down here, so how far is it past due? We're going to generate these for the people in the system. All right. So that was really quick, super high-level finance, but I just want to show you that it is all in there. Depending on what you're doing either with HCBS or in the future, you know, you do have the ability to kind of handle any of that financial information in the system. And even if you're not generating bills, you know, if you are deciding to track like your service rates, like your usual charge, how much it costs you, this information can help you with running reports. So if you are tracking how much it costs you, you can run a report to say how much did we spend providing this service in October or in all of 2016. If you're entering that information in the system is calculating it and you can get it out, okay? So that's kind of the benefit. Even if we're not billing, we can still, you know, track that. All right, and I know we touched on the reports briefly, which is kind of this reporting tab. There are a bunch of out-of-the-box ones here. Again, you do have these finance reports as well, okay? So you have ones that track authorization, that will track denials and receipts if you are actually billing. You can track aging by insurance. I'm not sure if anything will populate. We don't have a lot of data. So we'll kind of track aging by client and insurance over time, et cetera, too. So you do have all of the financial reporting is in the system. You are either tracking your own like internal service rates or you are actually using it for like billing of some sort. You're able to track that and payments. So I know we clipped through this last part pretty quickly. How are you guys feeling? Like, what questions do you have? This is a lot of information, and I threw a whole bunch at you. Is there anything else you want me to go look at again? Any questions? Yeah?
What in the error log? Is there something that tells us that there are errors in there, or is it something we just need to look every once in a while?
So you need to look every once in a while. There is a widget that will show you. It doesn't show you the details of the error log. I'll have to see if it's populating. Mostly you'll have to go there. So there is a widget, I don't think I have permissions to it, that will kind of show you the breakdown of like why things are occurring in the error log and the count. So how many reimbursement not found do I have? How many of this? To see the details, you will just have to go into that error log. So typically finance people, that's kind of one of their like first stops, is go check that error log in a workflow kind of thing.
From a user's perspective, the person that's creating the note, the chart, the chart. Does the supervisor, or how does it work in terms of access to the note? And when you make changes to it, you have to push it back to the person who created, or does the supervisor level have the ability to edit it?
Yeah, so that is actually completely up to you. You can make it so that the person creating the note can create it, but they can't edit it, all right? And then you could give supervisors privileges. So if the supervisor needed to make a change or the person who entered it was like, I made a mistake, you can give that only to supervisors or one person. I mean, you could give it to everybody, but you don't have to.
And it happens, I guess, in the operation, once you leave the note, it basically locks it in, at whatever, however you set it up, but once you leave the note,
yeah.
you then lock it in.
Yep, so it'll lock it in, and then even if, so once you bill that it completely locks it. No changes can be made. Which is one reason sometimes people, even if they're not actually sending a bill, like a file, they still want to go in through that generate bills and fake mark them as billed, because it will lock it and nobody can at that point, not a supervisor, because you billed it, right? So you can't go in and change it. So once a statement is billed, it will completely lock that note. Before it's billed, you can give people edit rights, but that's kind of your own call on how to handle that. But after it's billed, you can't change it.
And just from a platform perspective, let me ask a question, a bit more systems related, specific one, stuff you've been going over. From a systems perspective, the information resides, I guess, on a server hosted by Core, or this is set up by each individual agency?
No, so yeah, it's all hosted. We're hosted by Amazon, the biggest data centers. So yeah, no, your information is in servers in Amazon, and that's where the data is stored. They do backups, and we have our other servers. But yeah, we're hosted on Amazon.
And the other question on that is in terms of use in the field. So depending upon the access point, using a public Wi-Fi as opposed to a secure Wi-Fi, you preclude it in any way, or you can use this in other words, nothing is going to reside on the device, whether you're using a mobile device, a laptop, desktop, wherever. It's basically all going to be at the server. But in terms of transmission, will it preclude you from using a public Wi-Fi that's not secure? Similar to like what banks, certain banks, you go and try to use their online system. If it's not a encrypted level, it's basically, it won't allow you to actually enter that website.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we do use an encrypted connection, and you are able to use it out in the field. Very rarely have I heard of anyone getting that kind of an issue. We do set it up so that you can use it out in the field. Yeah?
Right, well, if you are providing HBS services, you must have it encrypted, and you are right. So if your agency is providing HBS services, you have to follow the requirement.
Yeah.
Or we'll all be in trouble with HIPAA.
Yeah, exactly. And you do have to consider HIPAA. So there's the can the system connect question, the can you versus should you, okay? So it's an encrypted connection. You can use it in the public. We've never had a breach. The only thing we say is don't log into it on a public computer because we use cookies. It's a very small possibility that something could happen, but don't log in on the library kind of thing. However, if you're actually having any patient data, because this is a medical record, right? If you're sitting at Starbucks and someone's sitting next to you, can they see it? So you have to set up those kind of agency protocols, like where you're opening it and that kind of stuff. So you can use it out in the field. We use it in the community. It's an encrypted connection. But you got to kind of think about that HIPAA aspect too, and how you're going to set those rules for your staff, especially once you're doing those HCBS services. Where are they allowed to do it?
Typically, logging off the web portal would probably not be. You probably should actually close the browser and lock out and basically get out of the system.
Typically, so there's a couple different things. From a HIPAA standpoint, we do have system timeouts, okay? And those can be set to whatever you decide as an agency, so that in case someone forgets and walks away, their system isn't just sitting open. A lot of agencies will also have a screen lock timeout for their users. So you might set the system timeout to, I think, 15 minutes, but everyone's screen locks after 1 minute. So that kind of stuff. But in addition, some browsers will let you save passwords. So again, kind of a policy for your organization would be you don't want to let people save their passwords and stuff so people can just come. And I think there's a way you can deactivate that. But you just want to have, so there's some of those that as an organization, especially moving into this electronic field, you have to kind of come up with some policies around protecting the data, especially once you move into the HCBS stuff. But yeah, typically I would say you definitely always log out and, you can close your browser. That's the safest way to do it and best practice because you don't want to accidentally leave it open.
Besides eShare and AIRS, are there any other platforms that you guys have already worked with?
So in the state of New York, we've done we do a lot. So we have some people doing health homes. We do NISCRI. I know we've been connecting some of the Rios. So yeah, we have a client all over New York of like different sizes, and I know we've been working on a lot of that stuff. So yeah, and if we haven't already done it, it's probably in progress, because I know there's a big agency we just started working with, and they kind of need all of it. So yeah, I mean,
In the city, I mean, obviously, we've got a housing program, so e-commerce is the other big, information sort of, just like that was supposed to.
I honestly don't know about that, but yeah.
So,
Well, small.
What was it called again?
Paperwork.
Okay, we'll look into this. I don't know all of it, so some of the clients aren't mine, so there might be things I don't know about, but we'll check into if we've already kind of that or not, and if not, if there's a plan in the future. And I know we'd always be open to being able to do stuff. So just because we haven't done it doesn't mean we're not either working on it or we can't.
Are we going to use both browsers?
So we recommend Internet Explorer or Chrome. People do use it in Firefox, but it can cause some like formatting or weird glitch stuff. So we don't support Firefox. I know you can pull it up, but we don't recommend doing it. You might run into formatting issues and stuff. Sometimes like text won't display or something.
Safari might not be great either, because it was erasing information as we were entering it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, those are all really good questions. Any other questions for me, either about the stuff we covered or stuff like this, just more general types of questions. So,
Like I'm gonna probably send you emails when I start like working on
yeah.
it. That'll be like.
Well, yeah.
But like, once I like sit down on the computer at the agency, questions are gonna come up. And I'll just do the email.
So that's a good point. So to bring that up, so all of the providers are working together, to kind of centralize some of those concerns, because it will be very overwhelming, and there will be some challenges that come up. So Jessica and Sarah are wonderful, but are not actually the right contacts in this situation. Ideally, we will have a new consultant in my position, and that person is going to be focusing, we're bringing on somebody really technical, and so hopefully that person